رحم الله من قرأ سورة الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الصادقين، والذين ذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. اللهم صل وسلم وزد وبارك على صاحب الدعوة النبوية والسولة الحيدرية والعصمة الفاطمية والحلم الحسنية والشجاعة الحسينية والعبادة السجادية والمآثر الباقرية والآثار الجعفرية والعلوم الكاذمية والحجج الرضوية والجود التقوية والنقابة النقوية والهيبة العسكرية والغيبة الإلهية. اللهم عجل فرجه وسهل مخرجه. أما بعد، فقد قال الله في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم: ومن أعرض عن ذكري فإن له معيشة ضنكا. صدق الله العلي العظيم. For the love of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib, sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. For the love of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam, a second salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. To give condolences to the Imam of our time upon this night, a third salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. When one examines the meaning of the word universal, you find that this word in the English language, it comes from the Latin root which means unum versus alias, which in translation is one amongst many, thus making it a word to describe the likes of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali bin Abi Talib. For when it comes to the praise of the Imam and the description of the Imam's virtues, in that even the words should be carefully selected. The figure of Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen is a figure whose benefit is not limited towards a particular religion or a particular sect. For the Shia and the non-Shia can benefit from Ali bin Abi Talib. No, rather the Muslim and the non-Muslim can benefit from Ali bin Abi Talib. The man of the East and the man of the West can benefit from Ali bin Abi Talib. No, rather the person living today and the person living 1400 years ago can benefit from Ali bin Abi Talib. You see, in this series, in each of these nights, we've been examining what does it mean to reconnect with the divine and return to a traditional worldview. A worldview which is built around the concept of God at every aspect of society. But if we're going to present this topic, then we need figures and examples of figures whose connection with the divine did not limit them in their humanity, and this is the example of Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen. You know, if you were to present the thesis of this series to other individuals, that a society which is built upon the divine is the optimum society for a human being, many people will reply by saying, no, religion, it limits humanity. Religion, it causes division. When there is a hungry person on the street, it is because of religion that people ask that what is his background instead of what is his need. But you find the reply to them is the example of Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen. For the humanity of Ali bin Abi Talib was at the peak of humanity, but at the same time he was a figure who was connected with the divine. And this is why upon this night, I'll examine the universality of Imam Ali by examining whom were the non-Muslim admirers of the Imam. And this discussion will take place at two levels. At the first level, I'll examine what have different non-Muslims said about Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen. But at the second level, I'll examine the life of Imam Ali and see what his relationship was like with the non-Muslims that were around him. Now, when we begin this discussion, the first point to remember and note is that Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen is the embodiment of the spirit of the Quran. No, rather the Imam is the walking Quran. The Quran is the only book that addresses all of humanity out of the divine books together when it says, Ya ayyuhan nas. No other book except for the Quran addresses humanity as a whole by saying, Ya ayyuhan nas, O people. This goes to show that at one level, the Quran is a book for everyone. The one who accepted it is a Muslim, but that doesn't mean it is a book for the Muslims, but rather it is a book for everyone. Don't we read in the famous verse in Shahru Ramadan that the Quran says, Shahru Ramadan, alladhi unzila fihi al-Quran, and then it says, Hudan linnas, that the month of Ramadan, in it the Quran was revealed. And what is this Quran? It is a guide for humanity. It is a guide for mankind. If Ali bin Abi Talib is the walking Quran, if Ali bin Abi Talib is the one who is with the Quran, as the hadith it says, Aliyun ma'al Quran wal Quranu ma'a aliyin, that Ali is with the Quran and the Quran is with Ali bin Abi Talib, then you find without a doubt this universal nature, it applies to Imam Ali as well. Yes, we accept that there are different levels. At one level, the Quran is Hudan lin-nas, a guide for mankind. But the one who accepts the Quran in totality benefits from the totality of the message, and then it becomes Hudan lil-muttaqeen, a guide for the God conscious. In the same way, Imam Ali, at one level he benefits everyone in society, but at the other level, the one who submits to the teachings of Ali bin Abi Talib, he becomes Imamul Muttaqeen, the guide and the leader of the pious. Now we come towards the discussion. With that said, I mentioned that the benefit of the Imam is not limited to a particular subgroup. So the question comes up, is that what have different non-Muslims said about the Imam? One famous example of a person who admired Imam Ali, but he was not a Muslim, was an individual who lived in the 18th century by the name of Thomas Carlyle. Thomas Carlyle was a famous British historian, writer, philosopher, and mathematician. He has a book which was a compilation of 6 lectures. And that book was called On Heroes, Heroism, and the Hero in History. And within this book, when he speaks about the Prophet of God, he mentions a line describing Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen. And he says in this book, On Heroes, Hero Worship, and the Heroic in History, he says, as for this young Ali, one cannot but like him. A noble-minded creature, as he shows himself now and always afterwards, full of affection, of fiery daring, something chivalrous in him, brave as a lion, yet with a grace, a truth and affection worthy of Christian knighthood. That this is a person who is a non-Muslim. But when he describes Amir al-Mu'mineen in this series of lecture about heroes, he describes the Imam as the peak of what it means to be a hero. For the word hero in the original Latin sense was associated with the word virtue. The one who has virtue, the one who can do which is right, is that person who is considered a hero. And you find in the history of Islam, the ideal example of this was Ali bin Abi Talib, battle after battle. But there's one example in Islamic history, that upon one day, Ali, he became the symbol of Mujahidun fi Sabilillah, the one who strives in the path of Allah, and that example was on the day of Khandaq. You know, on the day of Khandaq, an army had gathered against the Muslims, the likes of which were never seen in Islamic history. A man by the name of Amr bin Abdul Wud, he jumps across the trench which they had dug. He looks at the Muslim army, he was a fierce warrior in his own right. He says to them that if you kill me, you get paradise. And if I kill you, you get paradise. Is there anyone who'll fight me at this moment? You find that none of them stand up, except Amir al-Mu'mineen. He asked for a second time, none stand up except Amir al-Mu'mineen. He asked for a third time, the Imam stands up again. You know, on the day of Khandaq, when Imam Ali, he faces Amr bin Abdul Wud, he says to him that I hear that you accept one of three requests. My first request is that you accept Islam. Amr, he says, if I was going to accept Islam, I wouldn't have come to fight you upon this day. The Imam says, very well, then why don't you turn away and let's not fight? He says, if I turn away, then all of the women of the Arabs will laugh at me. Then he says, very well, if we are going to fight, then we'll fight on the ground and you will strike first. In the culture of the Arabs, when they would have what is called a biraz, a single man combat duel on the ground, only one of them would survive. It is stated upon this day, if you want to see what kind of a hero Imam Ali was, it's stated that as he's fighting Amr bin Abdul Wud, the Imam in the middle of the fight, in the heat of the battle, he walks away. When he walks away, they say, "Oh Ali, what are you doing?" The Imam says that this man, he spat upon my face and he insulted my mother. If I had struck him at this moment, it would have been out of my own anger. But the son of Abu Talib only strikes out of the pleasure of Allah. That's why the Prophet of God on that day, he said, ضَرْبَةُ عَلِيٍّ يَوْمَ الْخَنْدَقِ أَفْضَلُ مِنْ إِبَادَةِ الثَّقَلَيْنِ. That one strike of Ali on the day of Khandaq is greater than the worship of the human and the jinn. That what is the secret behind this line? You find the Prophet, he says, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّةِ, that the reward of an action is based upon the intention behind an action. This strike of Ali was the sincerest strike of any human being. You know, it's stated that after Amir al-Mu'mineen, he kills Amr bin Abdul Wud, the news of the sister of Amr, Amr's sister, she found out about his death. When they told her this, she said, "No, I don't believe you. That who can kill my brother, a warrior like that?" They said, "No, go towards his body." When she goes towards the body of Amr, she begins to cry at her brother's body, and then she walks away smiling. They said to her that, "Why do you walk away smiling?" She says, "Because the one who killed my brother was an honorable individual." They say, "In what ways was he an honorable individual?" She says, "Whenever my brother, he fights anyone, he whispers towards them that if you kill me, then do not take the jewels off of my armor, for it is the inheritance of my family. That son of Abu Talib who killed my brother, he killed him, but he respected this request. Nobody from the army of Muhammad would have done this. After that, she began to recite a line of poetry. She says, لو كان قاتل أمر غير قاتله ما زلت أبكي عليه دائم الأبد. She says, if the killer of Amr was anyone other than his killer, then I would cry over my brother for eternity. She says, ولكن قاتله من لا يقاد به وكان يدعى أبوه بيدة البلد. But the killer of my brother is the one who is not controlled by anyone, and his father is the one who was called the light of the land, that she praises Amir al-Mu'mineen after he kills her brother. You find this is the virtue of Amir al-Mu'mineen as a hero, which Thomas Carlyle respected. You find after that, another non-Muslim who praises Imam Ali is a person who was considered the most famous British historian who lived in the 17th century, and his name was Edward Gibbon. Edward Gibbon, he wrote a book called The Decline and the Fall of the Roman Empire. This book was considered one of the 100 greatest literary pieces in the English language. Within this book, in the 1911 print, which was printed in London in volume 5, page 351-352, when he speaks about Imam Ali, he says these lines which go to show the universality of Ali bin Abi Talib. He says that the zeal and the virtue of Ali were never outstripped by any recent proselyte. A proselyte is a person who converts to the religion. He united the qualifications of a poet, of a soldier, and of a saint. His wisdom still breathes in a collection of moral and religious sayings. And every antagonist in the combat of the tongue or of the sword was subdued by his eloquence and his valor. From the first hours, by his eloquence and his valor, from the first hours of his mission to the last rites of his funeral, the apostle of God was never forsaken by a generous friend, whom he deemed he was delighted to name his brother, his vicegerent, and the faithful Aaron of a second Moses. That Edward Gibbons, when he describes Amir al-Mu'mineen, he describes him for quality after quality. But amongst the qualities which he mentions is that he was a saint and a person connected to Allah. That where else do you see a man that he has such bravery on the battlefield, but he is always under the circle of justice, that he doesn't go towards oppression? This is the example of Ali bin Abi Talib. You know, after the day of Khaybar, after Amir al-Mu'mineen, he lifts that door which 40 couldn't lift. Amir al-Mu'mineen was seen trying to break a piece of bread. They say, "Oh Ali, that can you not break this piece of bread? You just lifted the door that 40 couldn't lift." The Imam replies by saying, "That door I lifted with the power of my spirit, not with the power of my body." This is why when Jalaluddin al-Rumi would describe Amir al-Mu'mineen, he would say, in terms of bravery, you are the lion of God, but in terms of generosity, I don't know who you are. That these are the qualities that you find in Amir al-Mu'mineen that the non-Muslims have admired. The third individual to admire Amir al-Mu'mineen was an individual by the name of Sir William Muir, a 19th century Scottish Orientalist. This individual, when he speaks of Amir al-Mu'mineen, he says that Ali was endowed with a clear intellect, warm in affection, and confiding in friendship. He was from the boyhood devoted heart and soul to the Prophet, simple, quiet, and unambitious, When in after days he obtained the rule of half of the Muslim world, it was thrust upon him rather than sought. Of course, we say Amir al-Mu'mineen was an ambitious individual in establishing truth. But this individual, when he speaks of the Imam, he highlights the reality that there were other individuals who would chase after the caliphate. There were other individuals who were willing to break the laws of God to attain the caliphate. But that same khilafat came to the door of Ali bin Abi Talib. It stated one day the Imam, he was mending a patched pair of sandals, that they have been patched upon patches. He says, Ibn Abbas, he looks at him, he says, Ali, what are you doing? What are these sandals? The Imam says, oh Ibn Abbas, how much are these sandals worth? Ibn Abbas says, they're worth nothing. The Imam says, these sandals are worth more to me than the entire khilafat. Except that I can establish truth via this khilafat and I can keep away wrong via this khilafat. And that's why it's stated, when they came to the door of Amir al-Mu'mineen, the first day that the Imam, he becomes the Khalifa, he comes out upon that day in a way which history and the narrations they record, that on his hand was the ring of Sulaiman, wearing the shirt of Ibrahim, wearing the amama and the Aba of Rasulullah, having in his hand the Asa and the staff of Musa, he walks up towards the mimbar. You know, when the others would sit on the mimbar, the first would sit one step lower. The second would sit one step lower than the first, and the third would sit one step lower than the second. But Ali did not come to follow the sunnah of the caliphs before him. He came to follow the sunnah of Rasulullah. So he places his foot where the third would sit. He climbs and places his foot to where the second would sit, then the first would sit, and he sits at that position where Rasulullah would sit. When he sits on the mimbar, he says, now truth has returned back towards its positions. The companions on that day, they would say that now we are reminded of the time period of Rasulullah. That this is Ali bin Abi Talib. You know, when this individual, Sir William Muir, he praises the Imam. He praises him for this quality and the kindness of the Imam. But what was the kindness of Ali bin Abi Talib? You know, if you want to understand what the kindness of the Imam was, it's stated that after the Battle of Jamal, when the first civil war in Islamic history had happened, Amir al-Mu'mineen, after that battle, he begins to speak to the people of Basra who are the source of this fitna and fasad. He says to them, O people of Basra, withdraw from this fitna and this sedition, for I have forgiven you. Even though you are the first people to break away from the allegiance and divide the ummah of the Prophet, the Imam says he forgave those individuals. And you know, it's stated that when Marwan, he meets Imam al-Sajjad, salawatullahi wassalamuhu alayh, Marwan, when he sees him, he says that no one was more noble than your grandfather in victory. Imam al-Sajjad says, in what sense? He says, I remember on the day of Jamal, that Ali bin Abi Talib would chase us. But as he would chase us, he would say that no, upon this day, that the wounded will not be killed and the captives will not be killed. That this was the kindness of the Imam. And what more example can I give you than of the 19th of Ramadan? Imam al-Baqir, he says that after Ibn Muljim, he strikes the Imam. The Imam says, give water to Ibn Muljim. Give food to Ibn Muljim. Be kind with him. If I live, then I may forgive him. But if I die, then do not mutilate his body, the Imam says. So this was the next individual who praised the Imam. After that, the fourth non-Muslim who I'll mention that praised Ali bin Abi Talib is a professor who was a professor of Arabic at Oxford University by the name of Wilfrid Madelung. Wilfrid Madelung, he wrote a famous book called The Succession to Muhammad, a study of early caliphate. Within this book, he echoes these virtues of Imam Ali of forgiveness, where he says, in face of the fake Umayyad claim to legitimate sovereignty in Islam as God's vicegerents on earth, and in view of Umayyad treachery, arbitrary and divisive government, and vindictive retribution, they came to appreciate his, referring to Imam Ali, they came to appreciate his honesty, his unbending devotion to the reign of Islam, his deep personal loyalties, his equal treatment of all his supporters, and his generosity in forgiving his defeated enemies. That they're speaking about the reality of Ali bin Abi Talib. You find individual after individual. A fifth individual is a man by the name of Charles Mills, an 18th and 19th century leading historian. When he speaks about Ali bin Abi Talib, he says that his talents as an orator and his intrepidity as a warrior were grateful to a nation in whose judgment courage was virtue and eloquence was wisdom. You see, the non-Muslims, they valued the eloquence of Ali bin Abi Talib, the wisdom of Ali bin Abi Talib. You know, it's stated that there was a famous adib of Arabic in Egypt. When they were introducing him, they said to him that you are Amir al-Bayan. You are the prince of rhetoric. He says, don't call me Amir al-Bayan. If anyone deserves this title, it's Ali bin Abi Talib. That what wisdom did the words of the Imam contain? That his words were 1,000 years ahead of his time. It's stated one day that the Imam was sitting by the Furat. As he was sitting by the Furat, he looks at his companion. He says to his companion, لو شئت لا جعلت لكم من الماء نورا ونارا. He says, if I wanted, I would make fire and light come out of this water. The man of that time didn't understand that statement. But Ali bin Abi Talib, 1400 years later, when they realized you can have hydroelectric energy, that from the running of water, light could be created. Amir al-Mu'mineen said 1400 years ago, I could create light and fire out of this water. These are the words of Ali bin Abi Talib. And you find a final non-Muslim example I'll give you is of a British army officer who lived in the 19th century by the name of Robert Osborne. Robert Osborne, when he speaks of Ali bin Abi Talib, he says, with him perished the truest hearted and best Muslim of whom Muhammad in history had preserved his remembrance. So you find these qualities of the Imam are qualities which are not just limited to a particular group. Some respected his intellect, some respected his heroism, some respected his wisdom and his eloquence and his forgiveness, but at the end of the day they respected Ali bin Abi Talib. So the question comes up, is that how did the Imam view non-Muslims? And how in the lifetime and in the governance of the Imam, what was his relationship like with the non-Muslims? You find this is that Imam. In his letter to Malik al-Ashtar, he says Malik, when he speaks about the people, he says, فَإِنَّهُمْ سِنْفَانِ إِمَّا أَخٌ لَكَ فِي الدِّينِ أَوْ نَذِيرٌ لَكَ فِي الْخَلْقِ. He says, O Malik, the people are of two types. Either they are your brothers in faith or they are your equals in humanity. And you find it was this philosophy which manifested in the life of Amir al-Mu'mineen, that he would say to the Muslims, O Muslims, your greatest enemy is not the Christians and the Jews, but rather your greatest enemy, O Muslims, is your own jahala and your own ignorance. You know, one day it's stated that there was a Christian man who was blind begging on the street. The Imam says to his companions, that does he not have any children to take care of him? Can he not work to earn a living? Why is he in this state? They say, oh master, he doesn't have children, and he used to work until he became blind. The Imam says, how strange is this? When he was young, you took work from him and benefited from him. But now that he's become aged, you don't take care of him. The Imam would give that Christian money from the Baytul Mal. This is how Ali bin Abi Talib would view the non-Muslims in his society. You know, in a different incident, there was a Jewish man. He goes to the administrative office of the Imam. He says that I have a complaint. Can I speak to anyone? They said, go and speak with the Khalifa. He becomes surprised that I, a Jewish individual, can speak with the Khalifa. So he says, where is the Khalifa? They say, you see that man who is laying underneath the tree, that is the Khalifa of the Muslims. Can you imagine a man who governed the likes of 50 of today's countries laying with that humility? That man, he says, Oh Ali, it is because of your justice that you can lay with such comfort. You know, when the Imam would come to the non-Muslims, he would say, Lo ju'ilat li al-wisada, that if there was a cushion set for me, if I was given the opportunity, I would judge the Christians by the Bible, and the Jews by the Torah, and the Muslims by the Quran, to the point that they would say, Oh Ali, you know our books better than we know our books. And don't we see this example, that when there was a Christian in Lebanon, a non-Muslim, and he wants to write a book, he titles that book Ali Sawt al-Adalat al-Insaniya, that Ali is the voice of human justice, that if you could personify justice, then it is in the wujood of Ali bin Abi Talib. That what was the justice of the Imam amongst non-Muslims? It's stated one day after a battle, the armor of the Imam drops on the ground. A Jewish man, he picks up that armor and he says, it belongs to me. The Imam says, no, that is my armor. He says, no, let's go to the court and see what the judge deems. When the Imam goes towards the courtroom, you find Shurayh al-Qadi is the judge. When he sees the two individuals, he says, Oh Amir al-Mu'mineen, you have come for a case? The Imam says, don't call me Amir al-Mu'mineen in this courtroom. You are judging between me and this man. You should address us equally. The man says, who is this individual? You find that Qadi Shurayh, he says, that do you have any witnesses? The Imam says, I have Qambar. He says, I accept Qambar. He says, do you have a second witness to prove this armor is yours? He says, I have Hassan and Hussein. He says, no, I can't accept their testimony because they're your children. The Imam says, Rasulullah called them Sayyidai Shabab Ahlil Jannah, the princes of the youth of paradise, and you can't accept their testimony. You find at the end, he rules against Amir al-Mu'mineen. The Imam, he gives the armor to that Jewish man. You find at that point, that Jewish man with tears, he would say, you are Amir al-Mu'mineen. You as the Caliph, I went to your courtroom, to a judge who was appointed by you. He ruled against you and you accepted the ruling with such humility. At this moment, I say, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. The Imam says, keep the armor and take my horse as well. You see, this was the Imam when he spoke to non-Muslims. When people across the world love Ali bin Abi Talib, it's because of how big the heart of Ali was. And one final example before I come towards Musibah. You know, there was one Jewish man who was seen weeping over the death of Amir al-Mu'mineen. They said, oh man, how do you know this Ali bin Abi Talib? He says Ali was returning from the battle of Nahrawan. As he was returning from the battle of Nahrawan, we were traveling together. And as we're traveling, it was the most delightful conversation. I reached all the way to my village, which was from the other side of Kufa. Kufa was on one side of the turn and our village was on the other side. When we reached my village, I said to him, oh man, where is your home? He says, my home is in Kufa. I said to him, Kufa is over there. Why did you accompany me all the way over here? The Imam says, it is the etiquettes of Islam that when you travel with a companion, you don't leave him until your companion gives you permission. That Jewish individual at that day, he says, these are the etiquettes of Islam. Afterwards, when he goes away, the other people, they began to say to him, that how did you know that man? Do you know who that is? He says, no, it's just a regular person who lives in Kufa. They said, oh man, that is the Khalifa of the Muslims. He says, if that is the Khalifa of the Muslims, then I will accept the religion of Islam. So you find this individual, he would be seen weeping over Amir al-Mu'mineen. Because when Amir al-Mu'mineen was struck on the 19th of Ramadan, it was all of humanity which became yatim. It was the entire Muslim Ummah which became orphaned on that day. And in particular, it was Zainab bin Kulthum who became orphaned on that day. You know, when it comes to the musibah of Amir al-Mu'mineen, the musibah of the Imam, it doesn't begin in Kufa. The musibah of the Imam begins in Medina. It begins at the death of Rasulullah. It begins at a burning door where his beloved Fatima would be in between that burning door and the wall. You know, it's stated one day that Fidda, she says to Lady Fatima that, oh Fatima to Zahra, do you know that people, they don't give salam towards Ali anymore? Zahra, she weeps at this, she weeps. She says, oh Ali, what kind of a day has come that the people, they don't give salam towards you, oh Ali. The Imam says, oh Zahra, this isn't the reality. It's that when I give salam towards them, they don't even reply to me anymore, oh Zahra. You find this was the isolation of the Imam. And indeed, one of the most difficult moments is when they burnt the door to the house of Ali and Fatima. You know, that Ali who didn't feel weakness in Badr and Uhud and Khandaq and Khaybar. That Ali would feel weakness at the janazah of Fatima to Zahra. You know, it's stated as Ali, he was doing the ghusl of the body of Zahra. Appointed comes, the Imam, he falls on the ground crying, Ali bin Abi Talib. Ayman, she says, oh Ali, why do you fall in this manner? The Imam says, Zahra didn't tell me this wound upon the rib of Zahra. You find Amir al-Mu'mineen, he buries Fatima to Zahra. The line is there in Nahjul Balagha, if you want to understand the musibah of Ali, that after this day, no night will pass for Ali where he finds rest after Zahra. It's stated on that night, Ali, he falls asleep at the grave of Fatima to Zahra. When the Imam, he falls asleep on the grave of Zahra, in his dream, he sees Fatima. Lady Fatima, she says, oh Ali, go back towards the home. The Imam says, oh Zahra, do you not want me to stay by your grave? Zahra says, oh Ali, I want you to stay. But oh Ali, on this night our children became yatim, Zainab and Kulthum. But I say that on the 19th of Ramadan, not even Ali would be left for them. You know, in the days of Ramadan, on these nights, the Imam would break his iftar in the house of his children. One night in the house of Imam al-Hussein, one night in the house of Imam al-Hassan, one night in the house of Sayyida Zainab. But upon this night of the 19th of Ramadan, the Imam, he breaks his fast in the house of Kulthum. If you want to look at what the breaking of the fast of Amir al-Mu'mineen was, Kulthum, she says, I placed in front of my water milk, salt and bread. My father, he looks at that meal. He says, oh my daughter, when have you known Ali to have such an extravagant meal. Take one item away. She says, I wanted to take the salt away, but the Imam, he said, no, take away the milk on this day. The Imam, he broke his iftar. He broke it just with salt and bread upon this day. After he eats his meal, the Imam would spend the night wandering in the house, outside the house. He would look towards the sky. He would say, هذه الليلة التي وعدني حبيبي رسول الله. That this is that night which my beloved Rasulullah promised me. He would say, أيتها الدنيا غر غيري. He would say, O world, go and deceive someone else. In this manner, the Imam, he spends the night. The time of morning, it comes. Amir al-Mu'mineen, he steps outside of the house on his 2 feet for the final time, because the next time Ali would return towards the home, it would be others lifting the body of Ali bin Abi Talib. You know, as the Imam was walking towards the mosque, it stated that the birds, that the ducks, they stopped the way of the Imam. The Imam says, O Kulthum, they are mourning over me. They know what will happen. Kulthum says, oh father, don't go towards the mosque. The Imam says, oh Kulthum, what Allah has decreed will happen. It stated the Imam, he goes towards the mosque. He calls the adhan, the final adhan of Amir al-Mu'mineen. After he calls the adhan, he sees that there is a man who is sleeping upon his stomach. The Imam, he wakes up that man. Who was that man? It was Ibn Muljim la'natullah alayh. The Imam says, oh man, sleep on your right side, for this is the sleep of the ulama. Or sleep on your left side, for this is the sleep of the hukama. Or sleep upon your back, for this is the sleep of the anbiya. Look at the mercy of the Imam, that he woke up his killer upon this night. The Imam, he goes, he begins to pray. As he prays, that point it comes when Ali, he goes in towards sajda. When the Imam goes in towards prostration, on one side he begins to raise his head. From the other side, Ibn Muljim, he comes. He strikes Amir al-Mu'mineen on the forehead. The riwayat, it says, فَوَقَعَ عَلَى وَجْهِهِ. The Imam, he falls on his face towards the ground. At this moment, Jibreel descends. He says those lines, تَهَدَّمَتْ وَاللَّهِ أَرْكَانُ الْهُدَى وَإِنْفَصَمَتْ وَاللَّهِ الْعُرْوَةُ الْوُثْقَى قَدْ قُتِلَ ابْنُ أَمِّ الْمُصْطَفَى قَدْ قُتِلَ عَلِيٌّ الْمُرْتَضَى. That by God, the pillar of guidance has collapsed. That firm rope has been cut. Ali has been killed. But I say this isn't the last time Jibreel would descend. It would be on the 10th of Muharram. The body of Hussein is on the ground. The body of Hussein is wounded. Zainab is watching at 70 steps. Shimar takes his sword to the neck of Hussein. Jibreel comes down, but the wording is different. He doesn't say قتل الحسين بكربلاء. He says ضُبِيَ الحسين. Hussein wasn't killed. Hussein was slaughtered on the day of Fire. ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين. Ya Allah, on this night which is amongst the nights of Laylatul Qadr, we ask through the musibah of that daughter of the Imam who became yatim on this night, through the musibah of Sayyidah Zainab, wherever the followers of Ahlul Bayt are in difficulty, help them. Wherever they are sick and ailing, help them. Ya Allah, we pray for the advancement of humanity and to be saved from this pandemic. If there is anyone who is listening towards this Majlis, or anyone from amongst the followers of Ahlul Bayt who have any particular difficulties in their life, whether it is difficulties in the family, whether it's finances, whether it's illness, whether it is depression, it is any form of difficulty. Ya Allah, through the right of Ali bin Abi Talib, help them upon this day. Wherever they have any specific hajat upon this night, through the right of Ali bin Abi Talib, grant those hajat if they're good for them. Ya Allah, on this night we pray to have the strength to walk on the footsteps of Muhammad and Ali Muhammad. We pray for the forgiveness of our sins. We pray for the intercession of Muhammad and Ali Muhammad. And we pray for the hastening of the reappearance of the Master of our time. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم. اللهم صل على محمد.